morning, children. I welcome you all to Geography session of K-Tech High School and Junior College. This is your teacher Nafisa Edenwala. Children, today we will continue with Exogenetic Process Part 1. We will be doing Module 2. Now, let's recap what we did in the previous module. We studied that exogenetic process or external forces working on the Earth's surface due to solar energy, kinetic energy and gravitational force associated with the moving object on the Earth's surface, which leads to formation or degradation of landform. The second, children, we studied was weathering. Now, what did we study in weathering? Weathering is the breaking up of rocks. It is a natural phenomena that occurs on the Earth's surface. It is caused due to temperature, pressure, chemical reaction and biological factor. We also studied, children, that weathering can be of 3 types. Let's see what are they. Mechanical weathering, the first one is. The second is chemical weathering. And the third is biological weathering. In mechanical weathering, children, we studied that breaking or weakening of a rock with any changes in chemical composition is called mechanical weathering. Exfoliation, granule weathering, block disintegration are some main types of mechanical weathering. It is caused due to temperature, frost, crystal growth, water and release of pressure. Now, in this second module, children, of exogenetic processes, our learning objectives will be chemical weathering. The next is biological weathering and how it occurs on the Earth's surface. The third will be mass movement and its type. Now, let's start with our first topic, chemical weathering. Children, we will understand chemical weathering with some experiments. Children, you must try this experiment in your own homes. It's a very beautiful experiment that we are going to do. Now, try this. Take a glass of water. Yes. And put some pieces of chalk in it as shown here. Next day, see what happens to it. The color of the water changes after you put the pieces. As we use the colored chalks, this happened because the chalks dissolved in water. That is what we observed. So, children, now you all know that water is a universal solvent, that is a liquid. Many things get easily dissolved in water. The solubility increases because the matter dissolved in water and those materials that does not dissolve in water easily gets dissolved in another solution. So now children, you must have known that water is a universal solvent. Almost many things gets easily dissolved in water. Let us see some more examples of chemical weathering. In the previous slide, we saw that water is a universal solvent. Anything gets dissolved in water. So we can say, children, that water plays a very important role in chemical weathering here. Children, the areas which receive heavy rainfall, chemical weathering occurs because many materials gets dissolved in water. Such area chemical weathering occurs in three ways: carbonation, solution, and oxidation. Now children, let's see the flow chart of chemical weathering, that is in the three ways that chemical weathering takes place. The first is carbonation, second is solution, and the third is oxidation. Now children, let us see how carbonation leads to chemical weathering, and we will study that with help of example. Now let's see children how carbonation leads to chemical weathering. Now here the rainwater travels through atmosphere before reaching the ground. So the carbon dioxide in the air mixes with the water in this process. Dilute carbonic acid gets formed. Materials like limestone get easily dissolved in such acid. Water plus carbon dioxide gives us carbonic acid. Now children, let us see how chemical weathering occurs due to solution. As you all know children, that water is a universal solvent and it is capable of dissolving more substance, means it has an ability to dissolve many substance than any other liquid. Now let's try this experiment. Take a lemon juice, sugar and salt. Water is mixed together. It makes solution. So when substances dissolve in water, the resulting liquid is called solution. Similarly, some minerals in the rocks get dissolved in water. Here we have another example of solution. Limestone is formed due to chemical precipitation of water and alkali. Here, a next example is of chemical weathering is at Vadgaon Darya in Ahmednagar district. Limestone gets precipitated chemically and undergoes chemical weathering. Again, similarly, because of solution, alkalis in the rocks dissolve and makes them brittle. This happens because of chemical weathering. The rock can easily break apart. Let us see another example, the way chemical weathering takes place due to oxidation. Now, children, you all know about rusted nails? Yes. Take few nails and wrap in a wet cloth. Keep it aside for 2 days. After 2 days, open the wet cloth. Observe what happened to the nails. You will notice some stains on the cloth and they are reddish brown in color. As the cloth was wet, red rust must have formed on the iron nails as they were wrapped. This could be the reason for the stains. So students, please remember that oxidation process occurs in rocks also in the same manner, which has iron present in them. Iron in the rocks come in contact with water and chemical reaction takes place between iron and oxygen. Hence, a reddish color layer is formed on the rock, as you can see in the slide. This is called rust. Children, there are many more processes involved in chemical weathering besides the one mentioned in the previous slide. Chemical weathering also occurs in our day-to-day life. Example are moistening of a table, salt in rainy season, apple slices turning brown. So, chemical weathering also takes place in our daily life. Now, let us study about another type of weathering, that is biological weathering. Biological weathering occurs because of the work of living organisms such as plants or trees and animals like ants, rats, earthworm, mice, rabbits, and other worms and insects. They make burrows in the ground because of their activity. So, weathering of rocks occurs. This is called biological weathering. As you all now know that biological weathering occurs due to living organisms like plants and animals. Let us see how biological weathering occurs due to plants or trees. As you can see in the image that as per the growth of the plant, the roots of the plant grows between the cracks and crevices. Crevices means gaps of the rocks or a structure. Structures, we are here referring to the buildings. Children, you must have seen in old broken buildings, the roots come out. Actually, the roots that of a plant creates a crack inside. These roots grow bigger in time and create tension in the rocks and structures and starts breaking them, as you can see in another image. That roots of the plants create tension in the structure and starts breaking them. Such weathering is called biological weathering. Now, biological weathering is due to plants and trees. In biological weathering, besides these, moss, lichens, algae, and other flora grows in the rocks and the roots causes weathering. Now, let's move on to another topic, mass movement. Now, let us understand how mass movement leads to weathering of rocks. Now, you will notice that the rocks particles start moving along the slope due to the gravity. The weathered rocks, weathered means the broken rock material, starts moving along the slope due to gravity and accumulate near the foothills, that is at a lower side or a gentle slope. This process has been happening for years. The weathered material form a conical heap at the foothills. When these weathered material move downward due to gravity is called mass movement. Now children, let us understand the types of mass movement. Mass movement occurs in two ways. That means there are two types of mass movement. Rapid mass movement and slower mass movement. Now, what is rapid mass movement, children? Rapid mass movement occurs on the steeper slope. Rapid mass movement is in the region having humid climate and steeper slope. As you can see, rocks and rocks particles form on the slope when it rains heavily. The rainwater penetrates the weathered again here means broken materials like soil particles and rock particles. They become heavy because of penetration of water. The weathered materials move very rapidly and comes down the slope. This process is called rapid mass movement. In rapid mass movement, children, rocks fall, land slides, and land subsides. As you all can see in the picture, rocks fall, land slides, and land subsidence. All these occur rapidly. Their effects are also very destructive. Many landslides has occurred in India. Here we have many landslides and mudslide has occurred in India. Example, mudslide at Malin village in Pune that took place on July 2014 in Maharashtra. Mudslide that happened in Maharashtra was a massive mudslide. Now let us understand about slumping. Students, sometime as you can see, the weathered rock materials means rocks particles, soil particles does not move downward. They remain where they are. So we can say that sometimes weathered material that do not move downward but remain there where they are, but they sink. This is called slumping. Now, children, I hope you have understood what is slumping. That is sometimes weather materials that do not move downwards. As they become heavy, they sink. This is called slumping. Let us learn about slower mass movement. Slower mass movement occurs in gentle slope in an area with a dry climate, and the mass movement occurs slowly. Soil cliff is a common phenomena in some areas. As you can see here, along the slope, small layer of soil and soil particles accumulate because of the movements of the soil. This process is called solifluction. Now, what does solifluction means? It's a gradual movement of wet soil or other material down the slope. Now, erosion occurs on the earth's surface. As you all know that when the rocks are eroded and washed away by the wind and water is called as erosion. So like weathering and mass movement, erosion is an external process that occurs on the earth's surface. Erosion occurs through various agents such as running water, wind, and also erosion includes glaciers, seawater, and groundwater. Now, children, let us recap what we did in our second module, because with this we end our chapter. Now, what did we study? We studied that exogenetic process or external process or forces working on the earth's surface occurs due to solar energy, gravity, and kinetic energy associated with the moving objects on the surface of the earth, which leads to degradation of landforms. We also learn about weathering, which is a natural phenomena occurs on the earth's surface. Breaking or weakening of a rock is a natural phenomenon. Weathering are of three types. Mechanical weathering. It occurs due to temperature, frost, crystal growth, release of pressure, water, and exfoliation. Second, chemical weathering. Chemical weathering occurs because of water. Water is a universal solvent. It plays a very important role in chemical weathering such as carbonation, rain, that is because of the rain, that when a carbon dioxide in the water mixes with the rainwater giving carbonic acid solution, and oxidation. The third is biological weathering. Biological weathering occurs due to the work of living organisms like plants and animals. Besides these, algae, lichens, moss and other flora grows in the rock. Animals and living organisms like ants, rats, mice and worms are responsible for biological weathering. We also studied about mass movement. The eroded material starts moving due to gravity and accumulates at a lower land or a gentler slope. This mass movement can be of two types, such as rapid mass movement and a slow mass movement. Children, as you all can see in the flow chart, the two types of mass movement, that is rapid mass movement and slow mass movement. In rapid mass movement, we studied that rapid mass movement occurs on the steep slopes. It includes landslides, land subsidence, slumping and mudslide. We also studied slow mass movement. Slow mass movement occurs on gentle slope. It includes soil cliff and solifluction. We also studied about erosion in this module. It occurs due to various agents like wind, running water, glacier, seawater and groundwater. So children, we learn about erosion, and in the next lesson we will learn more about erosion, that is in lesson number 4, Exogenetic Process Part 2. That's all for the day. Thank you.